Are you on a quest for the ultimate Pong game of all time? Since Pong's been around for about 50 to 70 years now, well, here's another Pong game, just while you're looking. It's called Pong Quest, and it's a very basic Pong game with some extra RPG elements to it. I really love the silly humor in this. I think that's one of the best features of this game. Uh, it's got really basic graphics. Kind of looks like a Zelda adventure meets Pong, and there's actually like an actual story to this Pong game. Unlike past Pong games where it's just always Pong, you're in a new level, now you have to defeat your opponent. And there's a lot of like quirky, funky music, kind of like Toe Jam and Earl. You have a life bar and everything. Every time you go into battle, every time you hit the actual ball with your paddle, you lose one health. So there's a certain strategic element that's being introduced here. And then there's a number of different balls and power-ups you can do. You have to choose like which one to use in certain situations, which ones to save. So it sort of adds like an extra element to otherwise a mostly regular Pong game. So there's sort of like scruff balls, curve balls, rectangular balls. So they all have like different attributes. Curveball actually does curve. The scruff ball I think has a weird movement as well. Now the funny thing is you can like pretty much avoid most of the enemies in these dungeons and then eventually because you can see them on the world map. And eventually, like, you could just go straight to the bosses. Now, I don't recommend that because it probably makes the bosses harder, and like you don't get the power-ups that every time you level up, there's different power-ups for you to level up your character's hit points, just like special skills, like being able to do like extra critical hits. So it's sort of like RPG power-ups every time you level up. But yeah, the game seems quite easy. Even if you die, like, you just start off with your life refilled. You start at the start of the dungeon, but like as you keep upgrading and you gain more HP, like it's unlikely that you're not going to make it through that particular dungeon. It also introduces like these abilities, and they don't really like visually. They don't really change things up. There's also accessories you can collect along the way in the dungeons, and it just changes the appearance of your character. I guess that's sort of like the long game for this. Like you can keep coming back to unlock every last accessory, like hat, costumes, glasses, beards, whatever. But yeah, it's easily fun in short bursts. But I feel like playing it more than like half an hour to an hour, like it sort of becomes monotonous. Because there's a lot of grinding involved, and the matches are really short. So as soon as you finish one match, you could potentially see 2 or 3 other enemies in that particular room, and like then you're stuck just going into this pretty much the same match. You're playing the same Pong game, and you're just choosing different balls, so it doesn't change up that much. Even between the bosses don't really play that much more different than the regular enemies, so it just feels like you're playing the same match over and over again and like grinding endlessly. Yeah, it feels like the mini battles, they're just like filler, unfortunately. Even the boss battles sort of feels like filler. Like it feels like filler content where even the boss battles don't feel like so rewarding, at least as rewarding as they should feel. And yeah, so even with all these changes and RPG elements, it still feels like Pong. Unfortunately, even though they tried to do something new with it. I heard there's multiplayer, but I heard the netcode's kind of messed up, so you can't really play multiplayer with other people. And it doesn't feel like a 1749 game. Like I was really going into this expecting like a super polished, like really addictive Pong game, and while it's like fun and amusing at first, that wears off within like half an hour to an hour, unfortunately. It feels more like a $5 or $10 game that you play in short bursts and then you come back to maybe a few days later. It's probably the most enjoyable game I played this week. I'd give it probably a 7.5 out of 10. The most thing is, the biggest gripe is like the $17. Like, it really feels like a $5-10 game from, the repetition and everything. Still, I would say like the best Pong game ever made was made like 20 years ago. It was Pong the Play the Next Level, and I'm sure you can find that for free. It's probably abandonware since it came out over 20 years ago. And that game was addictive. It had great music. At the time, it had great graphics. Now they look kind of dated. So I would just say, like, if you can find a copy of that for $10 and you can get it running on your Windows 10 because it was meant for Windows 95 or 98, try that. But if you really can't find Pong the Next Level still on PC or PlayStation 1, I would pick this up for like $5, but not the full 17, because it's not the best Pong quest you could conquest. So keep on ponging. Bye.